Hello everybody, I am Veena V, a teacher of English at JNV Alapi, Kerala. I will be taking the 4th chapter in the supplementary reader for class 10th, A Question of Trust by Victor Canning. A Question of Trust. Let's take a moment to examine the title. A Question of Trust. What does it mean? The expression calls into question the trustworthiness of someone or something. We have similar expressions in English, such as a question of loyalty, a question of competence, a question of accountability. In the first expression, the loyalty of someone or something is questioned. In the next one, it's the competence that's in the balance. Obviously, the third one raises doubts on the accountability. Students, learning English is one half understanding the words and the other half expressing yourself. So, it becomes imperative for a student of English to pick upon good vocabulary and expressions such as question of trust while reading the lessons. I'll try to teach such words and sentence structures from the lesson wherever possible. So, without further ado, let's delve into the lesson. You could either look into your book or read from the slide while I am reading. Shall we begin? Everyone thought that Horace Danby was a good, honest citizen. He was about 50 years old and unmarried. He lived with a housekeeper who worried over his health. In fact, he was usually very well and happy except for attacks of hay fever in summer. He made locks and was successful enough at his business to have 2 helpers. Yes, Horace Danby was good and respectable, but not completely honest. 15 years ago, Horace had served his first and only sentence in a prison library. He loved rare, expensive books, so he robbed a safe every year. Each year, he planned carefully just as what he would do, stole enough to last for 12 months, and secretly bought the books he loved through an agent. So students, the first 2 paras give us an overview about the protagonist, Horace Danby. He was a man of 50 years, unmarried, and lived with a housekeeper. He was very well and happy except for some attacks of hay fever in the summer. He made locks and was successful to have 2 helpers. Horace Danby was good and respectable but not honest. Why he is not an honest man? Because 15 years ago he had served his first and only sentence in a prison library. He loved rare and expensive books. To buy those books, he used to rob a safe every year. Now, let us discuss the only new word that we are introduced in the lesson. Students, you are fortunate that this lesson has only one difficult word, and that's hay fever. Do you know what is hay fever? It's an acute allergic reaction when you are exposed to pollen, and this is seasonal. What are the symptoms that you get if you are allergic to pollen? You will have watering of eyes, nasal discharge, sneezing, etc. So here it is already mentioned in the meaning that it is seasonal, and our protagonist, Horace Danby, has hay fever during summer. So that's the only thing he is affected with. Otherwise, Horace Danby is a healthy man. So we'll continue. I hope that you have understood the first two paras. We move on. Now, walking in the July sunshine, he felt sure that this year's robbery was going to be as successful as all the others. For 2 weeks, he had been studying the house at Shotover Grange, looking at its rooms, its electric wiring, its park, and its garden. This afternoon, the 2 servants who remained in the Grange while the family was in London had gone to the movies. Horace saw them go, and he felt happy in spite of a little tickle of hay fever in his nose. He came out from behind the garden wall, his tools carefully packed in a bag on his back. There were about £15,000 worth of jewels in the Grange safe. If he sold them one by one, he expected to get at least 5,000, enough to make him happy for another year. There were 3 very interesting books coming up for sale in the autumn. Now he would get the money he wanted to buy them. He had seen the housekeeper hang the key to the kitchen door on the hook outside. He put on a pair of gloves, took the key, and opened the door. He was always careful not to leave any fingerprints. A small dog was lying in the kitchen. It stirred, made a noise, and moved its tail in a friendly way. "All right, Sherry," Horace said as he passed. "All you have to do to keep dogs quiet was to call them by their right names and show them love." So moving on, we have got so many details about the protagonist, Horace Danby. It is about his meticulous planning before undertaking the robbery. He had done quite good homework. He had studied about the Shotover Grange, the house at Shotover Grange, its rooms, its electric wirings, its path, its garden. And on that particular day, he was very happy to see the servants go off to the movie. And he knew that there was £15,000 worth of jewels, and there were books coming up for sale in the autumn. So everything made him very happy. And he also has given a suggestion how to quieten the dogs. He says that all you have to do to keep dogs quiet was to call them by their right names. So during our reading, we came across 2 phrasal verbs which we will be discussing next. We came across 2 phrasal verbs, come up and put on. Now, first we look at the first one, come up. What does it mean? It means of an issue, situation, or a problem which occur or present itself, especially unexpectedly. Let us look at the examples given there. The subject has not yet come up. So the sentence talks about an issue which has not yet come up. That means that it has not happened. It will happen in the near future. Of a specified time or event, approach or draw near. She has got exams coming up. That means that she'll be taking exams in the near future or very soon. Of a legal case, also we can use come up. The case will come up this summer. Then, there is an entirely different meaning for come up. That is, when you wash something and it will look anew. I washed my car and it came up. It brightened up. That's the meaning there. I cleaned up the painting and it came up like new. Means that the painting was looking like new. In that case also you can use the phrasal verb come up. Now let us see how it is used in the text. There were 3 very interesting books coming up for sale in the autumn. That means that the sale will be very shortly commencing. So I hope that you understood that. Moving on, the next phrasal verb is put on. So what put on has 4 different meanings. The first meaning is to wear something onto your body. For example, put your shoes on, put your sweaters on. Then the second meaning, to add or increase an amount or action. I put on weight when I went away to college. Third one, to start a piece of equipment. I put the radio on. Then the fourth one is it has another meaning, to perform, to or organize an activity, show or exhibition. For example, the band are hoping to put on a UK show before the end of the year. So that shows that the band is about to stage a performance in UK. That's what the meaning is in that context. Now let us check it with the usage in the lesson. Put on, in which meaning we can attribute here to the lesson. He put on a pair of gloves, took the key and opened the door. Now we can rewrite that sentence as he wore a pair of gloves, took the key and opened the door. So those were the 2 phrasal verbs that we came across when we read those paras. Now we shall continue with the lesson. Please pay attention to your books or the slide. The safe was in the drawing room behind a rather poor painting. Horace wondered for a moment whether he should collect pictures instead of books. But they took up too much room. In a small house, books were better. There was a great bowl of flowers on the table, and Horace felt his nose tickle. He gave a little sneeze and then put down his bag. He carefully arranged his tools. He had 4 hours before the servants returned. The safe was not going to be hard to open. After all, he had lived with locks and safes all his life. The burglar alarm was poorly built. He went into the hall to cut its wire. He came back and sneezed loudly as the smell of the flowers came to him again. How foolish people are when they own valuable things, Horace thought. A magazine article had described this house, giving a plan of all the rooms and a picture of this room. The writer had even mentioned that the painting hid a safe. But Horace found that the flowers were hindering him in his work. He buried his face in his handkerchief. Then he heard a voice say from the doorway, "What's it? A cold or hay fever?" Before he could think, Horace said, "Hay fever," and found himself sneezing again. The voice went on, "You can cure it with a special treatment. You know, if you find out just what plant gives you the disease. I think you would better see a doctor if you are serious about your work. I heard you from the top of the house just now." So in those paragraphs, we came to know that when he entered into the room, he found beautiful paintings all over there, and he had some kind of doubt whether he should collect pictures instead of books. And there is a line there in the first paragraph. But they took too much room. What does that mean? There, they stands for the pictures. Took up too much room. Room in the sense, it talks about the space that the pictures will need. So, what did he decide? He decided that books were better because they will need only little space when compared to the paintings. But something was hindering Horace in his work. It was the flowers on the table. He gave a little sneeze and he had 4 hours before the servants returned. Since he was an expert in opening the lock, he didn't need that much time. What did he do? He went to cut the wire of the burglar alarm. While he was he was thinking about how he came to know about the house. He came to know about Shotover Grange from an article published in a magazine. And the writer had even mentioned that the painting hid a safe. Then, while he was doing all this, a voice asked, "What is it? A cold or hay fever?" Actually, he did not expect a voice there. There is another phrasal verb, bent on, that we'll discuss next. So with that, we are done with the first half of the lesson. There was a phrasal verb used in the last paragraph. So we will discuss that next. Phrasal verb, go on, has 2 meanings. The first one is to happen. That is something happening. I'm sure we never hear about a lot of what goes on in the government. So we don't know about what is happening with the government. The next meaning is to continue. Please go on with what you are doing and don't let us interrupt you. There it is said that you can continue with what you're doing. So let us look at the context where this phrasal verb is used in the lesson. The voice went on. Here, the phrasal verb is go on. The past tense form of the phrasal verb go on is used there, went on. The 3 forms of go, went, gone. So the voice went on, go on, past tense went on. You can cure it with a special treatment, so that there the context is to continue. That's the meaning there of that phrasal verb. I hope you students have understood that. So I told you we have done with the half of the lesson. So let us discuss some questions to revise what we have learned so far and to check up how well you have comprehended my tutoring. Now the first question is, what does Horace Danby like to collect? Horace Danby liked to collect rare and expensive books. Why does he steal every year? He wanted to buy books. Since he cannot afford it, he robs a safe every year. How did Horace know all the details of the house? He knew all the details of the house from a magazine, an article in a magazine. What was hindering Horace in his work? The bowl of flowers that was on the table was hindering Horace in his work. Students, as we are through with the questions, we will be continuing with the lesson. The next part is the conversation between the owner of the voice and Horace Danby. So I won't be taking any breaks in between. Since it's a conversation, I'll go on. At the end, I would give a gist of what happened within the house. So children, Pay close attention to the screen or your book. It was a quiet, kindly voice, but one with firmness in it. A woman was standing in the doorway and Sherry was rubbing against her. She was young, quite pretty, and was dressed in red. She walked to the fireplace and straightened the ornaments there. "Down, Sherry," she said. "Anyone would think I had been away for a month." She smiled at Horace and went on. "However, I came back just in time, though I didn't expect to meet a burglar." Horace had some hope because she seemed to be amused at meeting him. He might avoid trouble if she treated her the right way. He replied, "I didn't expect to meet one of the family." She nodded. "I see what an inconvenience it is for you to meet me. What are you going to do?" Horace said, "My first thought was to run. Of course you could do that, but I would telephone the police and tell them all about you. They would get you at once." Horace said, "I would of course cut the telephone wires first," and then he hesitated, a smile on his face. "I would make sure that you could do nothing for some time. A few hours would be enough." She looked at him seriously. "You would hurt me?" Horace paused and then said, "I think I was trying to frighten you when I said that." "You didn't frighten me," Horace suggested. "It would be nice if you would forget you ever saw me." "Let me go." The voice was suddenly sharp. "Why should I? You were going to rob me. If I let you go, you will only rob someone else. Society must be protected from men like you." Horace smiled. "I am not a man who threatens society. I steal only from those who have a lot of money. I steal for a very good reason, and I hate the thought of prison." She laughed and he begged, thinking that he had persuaded her. "Look, I have no right to ask you for anything, but I am desperate. Let me go. And I promise never to do this kind of thing again. I really mean it." She was silent, watching him closely. Then she said, "You are really afraid of going to prison, aren't you?" She came over to him, shaking her head. "I have always liked the wrong kind of people." She picked up a silver box from the table and took a cigarette from it. Horace, eager to please her and seeing that she might help him, took off his gloves and gave her his cigar lighter. "You will let me go?" He held the lighter towards her. "Yes, but only if you will do something for me. Anything you say." "Before we left for London, I promised my husband to take my jewels to our bank, but I left them here in the safe. I want to wear them to a party tonight. So I came down to get them, but..." Horace smiled. "You have forgotten the numbers to open the safe, haven't you?" "Yes," replied the young lady. "Just leave it to me, and I'll have them within an hour. But I'll have to break your safe." "Don't worry about that. My husband won't be here for a month, and I'll have the safe mended by that time." And within an hour, Horace had opened the safe, given her the jewels, and gone happily away. So, students, it was a conversation that happened between Horace and the lady there. So, you understood what transpired in the house after Horace was discovered by the lady in the red dress. So once when he was discovered, his first instinct, Horace's first instinct was to run. But Horace thought he had a chance to get away from this mess scot-free, because the lady of the house was more amused than alarmed by his presence. He tries to convince her to let him get away, and the lady in red was not convinced in the first, but he relented on one condition. The lady in red was back to get some jewels for a party, and she had forgotten the numbers to the safe. Horace struck a deal there. He agreed that he would get her the jewels she needed in exchange for his escape. So that's what happened there. Now let's move more and see what happens further. For 2 days he kept his promise to the kind young lady. On the morning of the 3rd day, however, he thought of the books he wanted, and he knew he would have to look for another safe. But he never got the chance to begin his plan. By noon, a policeman had arrested him for the jewel robbery at Shotover Grange. His fingerprints, for he had opened the safe without gloves, were all over the room, and no one believed him when he said that the wife of the owner of the house had asked him to open the safe for her. The wife herself, a grey-haired, sharp-tongued woman of 60, said that the story was nonsense. So I hope all of you understood what had happened to Horace Danby. He was fooled. He was fooled by someone who was smarter than him. The lady in red led him on in his belief that she was the wife of the owner. She got Horace to steal the jewels for her and made him take the blame for it. Let's see what happened to Horace. Horace is now the assistant librarian in the prison. He often thinks of the charming, clever young lady who was in the same profession as he was and who tricked him. He gets very angry when anyone talks about honor among thieves. So that's it. I hope that you like the twist at the end of the story. So through the experience of Horace, we get to know what the title implies. A question of trust. It indeed puts a question mark on the trustworthiness among thieves. No wonder Horace is angered at even the mention of honor among thieves. So let us come to a conclusion. Let us conclude the story. It was a very beautiful, interesting story with a twist in it at the end. Now let us look at the conclusion. Here, Horace and the lady in red had a stone thrown into their plans. The lady in red recovered better, and she came up with a counter plan. But Horace faltered. The lady remained flexible and adapted her plan to suit the changed circumstances. Horace may have been innocent in this particular incident, but he had carried out many robberies, and his incarceration can be seen as his crimes catching up to him. So that's the conclusion, students. I hope that you all understood the lesson and enjoyed the lesson. Thank you.